We live in a world that is just obsessed with goals, with productivity, with purpose. But what if all of that is a trap? Today, we're going to dive into the wonderfully strange world of Zhuangzi, an ancient Chinese sage who had a completely different idea, a really liberating antidote to all the pressures we feel today.
So let's just get right to the heart of it with this one question. What if everything you've been taught about success and striving is, well, wrong? What if true freedom isn't about building a better you, but about completely abandoning the blueprint? That is the wild, radical invitation that Zhuangzi is offering us. So who was this guy anyway? Well, Zhuangzi lived thousands of years ago during China's chaotic warring states period. It was a time of, constant conflict. And while all the other big thinkers were busy drawing up these grand plans to save the world, Zhuangzi was kind of like the irreverent voice in the back of the room, just chuckling at the whole idea of human ambition.
To really get what Zhuangzi was about, it's super helpful to put him next to his famous contemporary, Confucius. See, Confucius was all about building a better, more orderly society with rules and harmony. Zhuangzi, he wanted to unbuild everything. Not like tear down society, but dismantle the rigid mental boxes we put everything and ourselves into.
And that right there brings us to the core problem that Zhuangzi saw. He believed that we're all living in these little mental prisons, these cages of our own making. But what are these cages made of? And how do you even see the bars when you're the one who built them?
Well, to understand the cage, you first have to see the big, wide-open reality that we've walled ourselves off from. For Zhuangzi, this is the Tao. Now, don't think of it as a god or some final destination. It's more like the endless, spontaneous, messy flow of existence itself. It's one vast, interconnected process that has no real boundaries.
And here's the problem. The Tao is boundless. But the human mind? Well, it's a boundary-making machine. Right? We need to label things, categorize them, just to make sense of the world. It's a survival tool, for sure. But Zhuangzi says it's a tool that is totally turned on us.
And these are the bars of our cage, the distinctions we make every single day. We take the seamless reality of the Tao and we just chop it up with our words. We decide something is good and something else is bad. This is useful, that is useless. This is me, that is you. And in doing all that, we trap ourselves in this really limited, fragmented, and honestly, anxious way of seeing the world.
So how in the world do we get out of this cage? Zhuangzi gives us this brilliant, totally paradoxical key. We have to learn to embrace the very things that our society and our own minds have labeled as useless. This is probably his most famous, most mind-bending idea.
He explains this with these wonderful little stories. The first one is about a guy who has this giant gourd. I mean, it's so enormous, it's completely impractical. You can't use it as a water dipper, you can't use it as a bowl. By every normal standard, it is totally useless.
But then, Zhuangzi's sage comes along and offers a totally different way of looking at it. He says, hey, stop trying to force it into a predefined box of usefulness. Instead, just ask, what new possibilities does its weirdness open up? And it turns out, the gourd's so-called uselessness as a dipper is exactly what makes it perfect as a raft, a vehicle for freedom and adventure.
And get this, Zhuangzi applies the exact same logic to people. He tells another story, this time about a man with a severe physical deformity. Now, in a society that valued able-bodied men for work and for war, this guy would have been seen as fundamentally, well, useless.
But his uselessness is actually his salvation. Because he's not fit for the army, he doesn't get sent off to die in some pointless battle. Because he can't do hard labor, he's basically left in peace. His uselessness to the great big machine of society is the very thing that saves him, allowing him to live out his natural life. It's a total flip of how we value things.
So when you start to embrace what the world calls useless, you start to dismantle that cage, piece by piece. And this leads us to Zhuangzi's ultimate goal, his ideal state of being. He called it free and easy wandering. And he's not talking about a vacation. He's talking about a totally liberated state of mind.
So how do you get there? The path is through a concept called Wu Wei. Now, this is often translated as non-action, but a much better way to think about it is effortless action. It's about acting in perfect harmony with the flow of things, without forcing or striving. And his famous story of a butcher named Cook Ding makes this perfectly clear.
Okay, so Cook Ding was his butcher, and the legend was his knife never, ever got dull.
How? Because he didn't just hack away at the ox. No, he perceived it with his spirit, not his eyes. He could sense the natural structure, all the empty spaces between the joints. He would just guide his blade through those gaps that were already there, moving with the ox's natural form, never fighting against it. That is Wu Wei.
And this is the whole point. When you learn to act with that kind of spontaneous grace, when you stop trying to force everything, you enter a state of true spiritual freedom. Your mind can just wander, without getting snagged on all those judgments of good or bad, right or wrong. It's free.
This all leads to his most radical challenge, and it's captured in this famous dream he had. He dreamt he was a beautiful butterfly, just flitting around. And when he woke up, he couldn't be sure. Was he Zhuangzi, who had just dreamt he was a butterfly? Or was he a butterfly, right now dreaming he was Zhuangzi? The point isn't to solve the riddle. The point is to see how thin that boundary is between self and other, between dream and reality. If our own identity is that fluid, how can we be so certain about anything else?
So, what does this all add up to? Zhuangzi isn't trying to sell us a new system or a new set of rules to follow. That's the whole point. He's giving us an invitation to unlearn, to let go, and to just stop trying so damn hard to carve ourselves in the world into these neat little boxes.
His favorite metaphor for this is the uncarved block. Think of it as our original nature, just raw potential, spontaneous, whole. Our intellect, with all its labels and judgments, is the chisel that carves it up, creating all the pieces that form our cage. Zhuangzi's whole philosophy is an invitation to just put down the chisel and learn how to float.
So I'm going to leave you with this last question, one that brings Zhuangzi right into your world right now. Think about your life, your goals, your schedule, your identity. Is there some part of it that you've dismissed as useless or unproductive? Maybe, just maybe, that's exactly where your raft to freedom is waiting for you. Where could your life use a little more uselessness?